It may not be glamorous, but it affects everyone. Ohio lawmakers say they finally agreed on a new tax plan.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining guest host Steve Brown this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News, Joe Hallett, senior editor for the Columbus Dispatch, Dale Butland, communications director for Innovation Ohio, and Terry Casey, Republican strategist.
A few years ago, in the midst of the Great Recession, Ohio lawmakers were looking to make deep cuts in the state budget. Now the state has more money than it expected to have, a $2 billion surplus. Governor John Kasich has been lobbying for a tax cut.
We will have, I believe at the end of the day, a significant, I don't want to be a fortune teller here, but I think we will have a significant tax cut for small business. And I hope we're going to have more rate cuts. We also know we're going to have some extra revenue beyond our projections. I want them to go into tax cuts.
Well, it turned out to be at least somewhat of a fortune teller. The House and Senate tax compromise announced Thursday cuts income taxes up to 10% for all Ohioans and cuts small business taxes. But most Ohioans will also see higher property tax bills and pay more sales tax. Laura Bischoff, a big idea, kind of a plan, but this wasn't a huge surprise to anybody, right? These ideas have been bandied about for some time.
Right. I think it was a matter of the House, the Senate, and the Kasich administration kind of coming to terms of which pieces of the puzzle they could all agree on and in what sizes and what shapes. There are definitely some winners and losers in this plan. As you said, you know, folks will be paying more in sales tax. It looks like they're going to try to increase the state sales tax from 5.5% to 5 3/4. I think that folks who let's see, who are the losers? The losers in the plan would be property taxpayers, which is pretty much everybody. The CAT tax, the commercial activities tax, the exemption will go from $1 million down to, or from 500,000. It's going to switch around, so they'll end up paying more in that regard. And then the homestead property tax exemption is going to be means tested. Basically, if you earn more than 30 grand, you'll not be eligible for it anymore.
And so it kind of means that Les Wexner, with his big income, he won't get that tax break. But overall, it's part of a major shift from lowering income taxes and shifting more to consumption taxes. And a lot of people don't realize, in fact, right now as we're here in the studio, the head of the food banks for Ohio is testifying at the legislature in support of this, because when you buy food at the grocery store, you don't pay sales tax. Rent, prescriptions, doctor's bills, those kind of things are exempt from the sales tax.
Well, I mean, certainly the homestead property tax issue is, the state is shifting to be more progressive in that regard. Right. But the sales tax increase it's a regressive tax, which means that people who earn less, they pay more, a larger portion of their discretionary income toward this tax, whereas the Les Wexners of the world, or the wealthy people, aren't as hard hit by this.
Yeah, and I would simply say that I agree with Terry that this is a shift, all right, but it's a shift of the tax burden away from the wealthy and onto the backs of the middle income folks and the low income folks. But I want to focus on one piece of this, which is the small business tax cut, the so-called small business tax cut, which you just heard Governor Kasich say would be a significant tax cut for small business, which is designed to create jobs. Well, there's a 50% tax cuts for businesses earning up to $250,000 in taxable income. But the Cleveland Plain Dealer reports that 80% of Ohio's small businesses have taxable income of $25,000 a year or less, which means their tax cut will be about $370 a year. Meanwhile, the most you can get in a tax cut from this is $7,000 a year. Well, here's the problem. To hire one minimum wage worker costs $16,000 a year. Well, if 80% of small businesses are getting $370 and the most you can get is $7,000, you're not going to create many jobs. This is some job creation measure, Terry.
Well, Dale, we'll talk later about job creation in Ohio, and we're actually doing pretty well, like for the past month, #1 in the nation, even better than Texas. But the reality is Ohio's moving in the right direction, and that if you ask most people, nobody complains except for a few people who want to spend more about getting lower taxes. And in general, if you can shift it on consumption, particularly when those that are the necessities are excluded from the sales tax, that makes it a lot better. So a lot of people nationally historically have said sales taxes are bad, but Ohio's one of those states that excludes a lot of important basics.
We saw Governor Kasich embrace this plan pretty much. And the reason is because for every $1 in tax increases, there's $2 in tax cuts in this plan. And this fits the governor's starve government philosophy. He thinks government spends too much money at all levels. He's going to wean them away from money. The problem is by fiscal year 2016, we will be taking in about $685 million less in taxes. How is that money to be made up? Will it be made up, or will there be more cuts across the board in local government funding?
Dale's colleague at Innovation Ohio, Stephen Dyer, I think the exact quote was, "This pretty much solidifies the fact that the state has forsaken its responsibility for our kids." That seems a little extreme, but I assume you agree with that overall sentiment?
Well, it's not just the kids, it's also local governments, but certainly for schools and local governments, as Joe points out, look, they haven't made up the $1.8 billion they cut from schools in their first budget. They haven't made up the $1 billion they cut from local governments in their first budget. So what does that mean? That means you're going to have, this is all a shell game. You parade around as a tax cutter at the state level, but all you're doing is shifting the need for tax increases down to the local level.
I mean, Governor Kasich has been very clear about that, right? He hasn't hidden that.
No, Governor, what do you mean he hasn't hidden that?
As far as
I don't think he's hidden it in terms of what the reality is, but he denies that he's pushing the need for tax increases down to the local level. But the truth is, since he's been governor, there has been a record $1.3 billion worth of tax increases on local ballots from one end of the state to the other.
Well, but in many cases that's driven by union contracts and going to people on school districts. But Dale, if you actually look at this budget,
has nothing to do with those $3 billion in cuts, right, Terry? All has to do with the union guys, right?
Well, Dale, if you actually look at the facts of this budget, there's $750 million more for elementary and secondary education than in the previous budget. So
still below pre-recession levels, though.
Well, but part of the pre-recession was driven by Strickland spending tobacco subsidy money rather imprudently, and also taking one-time stimulus money and telling schools you're going to have the money forever and ever, which was rather phony and stupid.
Wait a minute. That's exactly what the stimulus money was provided for, Terry. It was for states to use so they wouldn't have to lay off a bunch of local government people and teachers and so forth. And now you're criticizing them for using the stimulus money for exactly what it was intended to be used for?
Well, Dale, it was bad math to give money, extra money, spend more, and then suddenly be surprised that you don't have it the next budget cycle.
Either way, I would say that Republicans are billing this as an overall $2.6 billion tax reduction, for better or worse. We could talk about that all day, but on to another topic I'm sure will generate conversation. Another one near and dear to the governor is Medicaid expansion. Kasich wants to use $13 billion federal dollars to expand Medicaid coverage in Ohio. Conservative Republicans, of course, are loath to endorse any part of the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare. It won't be in the budget, expansion won't, and it won't pass the legislature before summer break. But there is a chance that expansion could be combined with reform in separate bills. Kasich promises to make it happen.
But I just want to make it clear, I will not give up this fight till we get this done, period, exclamation point.
And Dale Butlin, do you still have any hope for Medicaid expansion by the legislature?
Look, there is a reason why conservative governors all over the country, from John Kasich in Ohio to Scott Walker in Wisconsin to Jan Brewer in Arizona,
and Michigan as well,
are all supporting Medicaid expansion. In a rational world, this would be a no-brainer. We wouldn't even be having a debate over this. You're talking about saving taxpayers $400 million over the next 2 years, saving thousands of jobs at hospitals. You're talking about saving 3,000 lives and ensuring 275,000 more working poor in Ohio. So, as I say, if this was a rational world, this would be a no-brainer. But the conservatives who run the legislature here in this state don't live in a rational world. They live in a world of Obama derangement syndrome, where if the president proposes anything or supports anything, they have to oppose it. So these right-wingers don't care about any of these stats. All they care about is playing politics, bashing Obamacare, and refighting the last election.
Well, but Dale, if you actually read the Obamacare details, there's a legitimate worry about what happens in years 4, 5, and 6. And I think, and I've said it on here before, the new Medicaid does not need to go in effect until January 1st. So there's still time after this budget goes in effect July 1st. So I think the governor's going to get a lot of what he wants, and it's good that Dale's supportive of the governor on this.
You know, I think Governor Kasich's plan makes eminent sense fiscally, medically, on almost every level. But I also think if that plan was brought to the floor, it would pass overwhelmingly in both chambers. The problem is the leadership. Senate President Faber and House Speaker Batchelder are ideologues. They do not like this Obamacare. To me, they are the main roadblocks for this expansion, and I don't see it happening because of that.
Both sides have expressed concern about it coming to a vote in their chambers. Laura Bischoff, what do you expect, or what do you think will happen in the legislature?
I think the only thing, I agree with Joe, but I think the only thing that might get them to move on this is the threat from the Ohio Hospital Association, the Chamber of Commerce, AARP, NAMI, all these big groups say if we don't see some serious action on this by July 1st, July 2nd, then we're going to take it to the ballot. Or we're at least going to talk about taking it to the ballot. So they've been kind of holding that hammer over them, and I really don't think that they want to see this on the 2014 ballot. It will force John Kasich to defend Medicaid expansion while he's running for re-election. And I don't think that's going to go over very well with the Tea Party voters, the Libertarians, and others who might otherwise be supportive of him.
Look, from a pure politics point of view, the reason that people like Batchelder and Faber and some of the others who are standing as roadblocks here, the reason they think they can get away with this is because they think they're safe in their gerrymandered districts. But in a lot of districts around the state, including very rural districts that are very Republican, hospitals are some of the biggest employers in those districts. And remember, hospitals are going to lose the reimbursements they get for the charity care they provide if this doesn't go through. And if this doesn't go through and there's not Medicaid expansion, they still have to provide the services if people get sick, but they don't get any reimbursement. That's going to cost jobs. And as some of these constituents of these legislators begin to lose their jobs, I think they're going to start to rethink just how smart it is to keep re-electing these guys by such huge margins.
Getting back to your point of putting it before voters, is there the political will to do that right now? I mean, are people numb to this topic? We've been talking about this since healthcare passed 2 years ago.
Well, I think that there will be the political will, but it's because it's not necessarily partisan. It's dollars and cents, as Dale says. You know, there's a lot of hospitals that they're not going to get this reimbursement for charity care. And then if Medicaid expansion doesn't go through, then those people, they'll still have to provide the care. So it's going to cost them millions and millions of dollars. So I think they'll have a business case for going ahead and pushing for this and putting it to the voters.
There's a lot of hypocrisy here. I mean, here we have basically the conservative caucus opposing this, and yet they're all taking about $1,400 worth of health care coverage from taxpayers every month. Governor Kasich resorted to a spiritual argument the other day when we were talking to him. He said to all these conservatives, look, I'm with you on smaller government, but one of these days we're going to go meet St. Peter, and he's not going to ask us what we did for small government. He's going to ask us what we did for poor people.
Joe, he might also have asked them what it means to be pro-life. You know, according to Harvard Medical School, Medicaid expansion will save 3,000 lives a year in Ohio per year. Now, for the first 3 years, when the feds are picking up the entire cost, that means 10,000 lives we can save in this state for zero cost. You know, it seems to me that at some point people have to recognize that being pro-life means more than just being anti-abortion.
We do have to move on to our third topic of the show, evaluating teacher performance. It's never easy, and it can be very controversial at times as well. Ohio has a new way of grading teachers. It's called value added. It relies on a lot of data and student test scores to see just how much value a teacher adds to a classroom. And this week, the Plain Dealer and State Impact Ohio found the new system raises a lot of questions about accuracy and fairness. Terry Casey, were you at all surprised by the reports that we saw come out this week?
Well, the difficulty is education is something where it's hard to come up with one magic formula that works in all, I think, 613 districts, because Ohio is very diverse. My wife's brother is visiting from Kansas, and his wife happens to be a principal. In fact, a Blue Ribbon National Award winner in Kansas was honored at the White House in a ceremony a while back, and I talked to her this afternoon. And clearly, we need to get better ways of measuring classroom performance, and in my view, rewarding the teachers that do a great job. But it takes a lot of work. It's not easy to do, and it's hard for a legislature to set up one formula that works exactly in every classroom, in every district, in every part of Ohio.
They've certainly tried, but I mean, what about this particular, about value added? The report said that they automatically penalize teachers in poorer districts, and that teachers who rated higher were not often paid more. Is that a common occurrence?
Well, there's a lot of problems, and part of it is in some states, like in St. Kansas and other parts of the nation, teachers' unions are not as strong, and therefore there's a little more flexibility as far as what a principal, what administrators can do with teachers. One of the biggest things that nobody's yet figured out how to do is how do you legislate and encourage parental involvement, because the more activity you have of parents. But this is a tough problem. I think people are starting to realize you've got to do more of rewarding teachers, helping teachers, but how do you do it is the difficulty.
You know, in Ohio, the value added measure is really only applied to a small slice of the teacher universe, because it's for, right now we have testing on math and reading in, I think, 4th through 8th grade.
Yes.
So those are the teachers on which you can apply this value added measurement.
Right.
But everybody else, like all the science teachers, the art teachers, the music teachers, et cetera, and for the global language teachers, you know, you're not going to get, you can't measure that.
And
they're not measuring it yet.
And the measure, like elementary, where you've got generally one teacher with one group of students throughout the day, is a little different than, say, in a middle school or a high school where
everybody's
you've got
rotating, right?
Yeah.
Nobody has yet touched on the basic problem, which is that value added was never intended to be used as a way to evaluate teachers. It was supposed to be used as a way to evaluate how kids are doing and where they need help and so forth. And when you try to bring this down to the classroom level, when you apply value added at the classroom level, your numbers are so small, the sample is so small that the fluctuations are wild from year to year, which is why in places like Los Angeles and New York City, where they've tried to use this, it's not uncommon to have the best rated teacher one year be the worst rated teacher the next year because of these wild fluctuations.
Well, and part of the fluctuation is in some classrooms you have a good bit of stability in the teachers and the group of teachers working with the same principal, and you've got other schools where there's huge turnover in the students month to month and year to year, and clearly the more stability you have in a school, staff and students, the better the performance, the better they can tailor to what the needs are of each student.
I think in some of the urban districts like Cleveland and Dayton and Columbus, there's as much as like a 30 to 35% turnover in the makeup of a classroom from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. So you're right, there's a big changeover. You know, what's interesting is my colleague Jackie Borchert pointed this out to me. In the budget bill, there's they're going to lower the value added weight that's given from 50% to 35%, and that's something that's tucked in the budget bill. It hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but it looks like maybe Ohio is kind of rethinking this a little bit and maybe de-emphasizing it a bit.
Right.
And on to our final topic of the show. More than 2 years after Governor John Kasich and lawmakers created it, Jobs Ohio will soon start doing its work using proceeds from Ohio's liquor business to lure companies to the state. The goal is to make Ohio more nimble, more friendly to businesses, but critics say the downside is lack of transparency. As a quasi-private agency, Jobs Ohio's records are private, at least for now. Joe Hallett, where does the agency go from here? How does it begin working with still somewhat of a cloud hanging over its head?
Well, it begins working with $100 million of taxpayer liquor profits, which now have been privatized. And its performance will be based on what it tells us its performance is. I'm not sure we're going to have a lot of objective measurements on how many jobs Ohio creates, because It has a private auditor. They foreclosed state auditor Dave Yost from auditing the books. So we'll have to depend on Jobs Ohio to tell us how it's doing. You know, that could be a very subjective thing. So I don't know. I've said from the beginning that I don't know if this is, I don't like the way this is set up. There's not transparency here. It appears that Jobs Ohio is going to be using the same kind of incentive programs that have been used by the State Department, the old State Department of Development for years. I'm not sure what's different here other than the infusion of $100 million a year in public money and the lack of transparency.
Yeah, Joe, you know, it's interesting that just this week, an organization that maybe you belong to, this investigative reporters and editors, I think, just gave Jobs Ohio the #1 secret, non-transparent entity in the entire country. You know, look.
Actually, they're a finalist.
Well, yeah, but they were at the top of the list in the list that was given.
They have some stiff competition
now. They have some stiff competition. But look, I mean, this is preposterous to suggest that this is a private entity. Every member of the board of Jobs Ohio was appointed by the governor of this state. The employees all came, or most of them came, the vast majority came, from the Department of Development. He just raised their salaries and put them over there. And then, as Joe said, every dime of operating money they got comes from state liquor profits. So for them to suggest that this is somehow a private entity or these are private resources is absurd on its face.
Operating money. They did raise a lot of private money in the beginning to start up.
Well, they didn't raise a lot, as it turns out. What we know is that the $7 million that they originally had that came from the state, although the legislators apparently only knew about $1 million of that. Then we find out there was another $5 or $6 million that somehow secretly got transferred to Jobs Ohio. That's where the startup money came. And they blew $1 million of that on these fancy office furniture and all the rest of the stuff that was detailed or that we put out last year. But the point is, you cannot suggest that liquor profit money is somehow, because the legislature waves a magic wand, they somehow make that private money. That's tax money. That's public money.
Well, Dale, let me focus on the bigger picture. What Ohioans are concerned about is, are we improving or are we getting worse in jobs? And the news that came out today where Ohio grew 32,100 jobs and we weren't 80th in the world, we were #1 in America, even better than Texas in terms of growing jobs. So Ohio is moving in the right direction. When John Kasich became governor, when Strickland was governor, we were way above the national rate. This past month, the national level went up to 7.6. Ohio's staying at 7%, even as more Ohioans went into the workforce. So Terry, Ohio's moving in the right direction. You don't like it, Dale, but we're succeeding. Things are getting better.
Terry, the truth is Ohio's treading water. Yes, we gained some jobs this last month, but the month before we lost 20,000 jobs, more than any other state in the union. And just this week, both the Pew Charitable Trust and Arizona State University, the biz school there, both came out with rankings that showed Ohio is now 47th in the country in private sector job creation. So please don't tell me that Jobs Ohio is doing such a great job.
We could cherry pick statistics all day, but back to the heart of the matter, Jobs Ohio. Laura Bischoff, how does Jobs Ohio get to work, again, with still this cloud over its head?
Well, I think, you know, we're not going to really know because there's a lack of transparency and accountability. I think we'll hear a lot of messages from Jobs Ohio and from the Kasich administration that, you know, they're doing great, they're having wins here, they're having wins there, blah, blah, blah. But it's going to be sort of a trust us, because you know, reporters and the public will not have a detailed, and the state auditor will not have a detailed look at what's going on.
That's the allure to businesses, right? I mean, that's John Kasich has said that brings us up to the speed of business.
Well, but I'll give you an example of an Ohio business that very strongly supported this during the legislative process. Is a place called the Cleveland Clinic. There's a lot of places like the Cleveland Clinic that have security worries and concerns about certain trade secrets, certain business operations. I mean, business has changed in the past 20 or 30 years in terms of how things operate, and they want to know that if a governor tells you, if you give me this information and talk about your business, it's not going to suddenly get discovered in emails or other kind of things that reporters.
There has been a long-standing exemption to the public records law for trade secrets. Those are not disclosed by government They haven't been for eons.
But when businesses are looking at maybe
eons.
coming into Ohio as opposed to Illinois or 5 other states, newspapers
But all of those states have public records laws, and all of them have exemptions for trade secrets.
Well, there's trade secrets, but there's also just the fact that one industry is looking at locating in Ohio versus 4 other states. They don't necessarily want to get played off.
Certainly not going to settle it here today. But time for now for our off-the-record parting comments. First to you, Terry Casey.
Well, the Democrats love to attack on this so-called war on women. And yes, there was a Republican legislator who introduced a bill on abortion, but I know that state representative Ron Hood, and he doesn't have a medical degree. He doesn't have the legal expertise. I predict that bill's not going to go anywhere because the leadership in the legislature recognizes if you're going to pass any bills, you want to make sure it stands up to legal scrutiny and medical common sense.
Dale Butland.
If a regular person walks into a casino and plays blackjack and loses $1,000, but then sticks around, plays a little longer, and wins the $1,000 back, and then leaves, most of us would conclude he's broken even and didn't win anything and doesn't owe any tax, except under this new budget bill that the Republicans have put forward. Now you can't deduct gambling losses if you're a regular person walking into that casino. But lo and behold, don't you know, if you make a risky bet in the stock market and you bet on credit default swaps, you lose, you can still deduct those losses. It's a perfect example of how Republicans favor the rich over the rest.
The state Democratic and Republican parties are holding their annual dinners this Saturday and next. The sad fact of life is that the political parties are becoming more and more irrelevant in the post-Citizens United world.
And to you, Laura Bischoff.
All right, so I predict Jobs Ohio's got a really good chance of winning the Investigative Reporters and Editors Golden Padlock Award, but they are up against some stiff competition from the U.S. Border Patrol, the New Jersey Transit, the Fulton County Tax Commissioner, and the CDC.
Go Ohio.
It's a real murderer's row there. That's Columbus on the Record for this week. I'm Steve Brown. Please check us out online. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. You can connect to all of that from our website, WOSU.org. And have a good week.